Alright, so this is part 4 in my Canada video log series. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the last few days I spent working for the Amsterdam brew house and the incident that led to me getting fired. Now, it's important to understand that I didn't get laid off, I didn't get let go, I didn't get made redundant or anything like that. I was straight up fired. And I'll talk about the incident that led to it. So as I mentioned in my previous video, the more time I spent working at that restaurant, the more time I spent living paycheck to paycheck, working for pennies on the dollar in a big city, the more I began to resent my situation, the hopelessness of my situation, and I was becoming increasingly resentful and depressed, and I think it was beginning to show. And especially regarding what happened to my thumb when I was admitted into the hospital and the situation from there. Life is not easy if you're an unskilled immigrant living in a foreign country. It's a shame that I needed an experience like this to teach me that, but I guess experience really is a great teacher. There's no teacher like experience. So anyway, as I said, the more time I spent working there, the more my spirit was beginning to get ground down by the brutal nature, the brutal cutthroat nature of the service industry and the work environment. And there was one particular server by the name of Ava. Well, her real name was but everyone there referred to her as Ava. Now, you got to understand that at the time, and even now, I'm not very good at reading the room. I'm not very good at picking up on subtleties and workplace politics. It takes phenomenal attention to detail and a working social compass to be able to pick up on these things, the intricacies of conversation and things like that. I've just never had that. This is just the way I've always been. So if people are out to get me, chances are I don't notice until it's too late. Secondly, I'm just too open and frank with other people at times, especially when I'm in one of those emotionally vulnerable moods. I'm not very discreet when it comes to explaining what my thoughts are at any given time. I'm not good at discerning, is this the right person to speak to, or is this a good thing to mention? And throughout my life, there have been many occasions just like this, where I have said this or that thing in order to get me into trouble. But deep in my heart, my intentions have always been good. I've always tried to be frank, good-natured, and honorable in my own way. I don't seek to stab other people in the back. I don't try to make enemies or declare war on other people unless they declare war on me first. And I'm not really used to having friends. I mean, working friends, it's something that I need to work at. But by nature, I would describe myself as a friendly person, and I'm not outwardly hostile to people or strangers. That's just the kind of person I am and I've always been. But nonetheless, I have blind spots. I am a flawed person, and I have weaknesses which can easily be exploited. And the incident in question that led to my dismissal is probably one such example. So, who was Ava? Ava was a young 20-something-year-old server with blonde hair, and not really anything remarkable about her in terms of her physical appearance. And I'm not really good at remembering what people look like anyway. All I remember is that she had a blue bandage. Either it was a bandage or some kind of fashion accessory that she had on her left leg. And though I didn't realize this at the time, she was incredibly manipulative and two-faced and thin-skinned. She almost certainly had some kind of ego problem. And anybody who challenged her authority, anybody who would expose her, would find themselves at the mercy of a phenomenon which I understand is referred to as either narcissistic rage or backstabbing, depending on the context. But anyway, and this one particular, was it an afternoon? Yes, I think it was afternoon, sometime in August. Ava and I were approaching a table. I was clearing one of the tables that she was supposed to be collecting, I think she was supposed to be collecting a tip from. So long ago this happened, I don't think I can remember exactly what it was that I said to her. But I do remember a mistake was made at some point. I think I must have informed her that she was collecting from the wrong table, or one of the table orders had been mixed up. And I said this to her while she was in front of a table. Other people were within earshot. She looked at me with an expression as though I had humiliated her, and she said, "Thank you." Now, even somebody like me who struggles from time to time with reading facial expressions and listening to voice cues, I knew she was being sarcastic, and I had done something that had upset her. And a few minutes later, she summoned me privately and let me know that I had upset her. I had basically upset or humiliated her somehow because she was in front of other people, when really that's not how I saw it. All it was a mistake had been made. It's a mistake that I could have easily made. It's not a life or death situation. It's not something that would have cost the company money. All it meant was that she was standing at the wrong table or something. So I thought she was overreacting. But I apologized to her, and God, it is painful looking back. If I had known what was going to happen next, I wouldn't have acted the way I did, but all right. So you got to understand what my mentality was at the time. I had thought, so I'd been led to believe, that I had wronged her. I'd done something that had upset and humiliated her when I didn't have to. You know, my intentions were good, but she was upset with me, so I felt that I needed to make things right with her. I felt that I needed to apologize to her or something. And this is how I did it. I came up to her in a moment of confidence, you know, when she was alone, and I tried to convince her that what happened wasn't her fault. And it's what happened here. This is the part where I dug my own grave. I was way too open and candid with her about how much I didn't like this job. I made a joke about feeling so angry that at times I wanted to bring in a gun and shoot people at this restaurant. there's so many other people who I probably could have joked about that with, but I really picked the wrong time for that. And, well, she looked mildly puzzled and concerned, but she smiled the entire time I spoke to her, so I didn't really sense that I'd done anything wrong until half an hour, was it? I forget exactly how long. It might have been an hour or half an hour later. One of the supervisors summoned me upstairs. He told me to come with him, and I asked him, "Am I in trouble?" He didn't answer. And I should have known at that point that I was in the shit. So I was brought upstairs into the manager's office, and I was told, "You are terminated from working here immediately, and you are also banned from working at this restaurant. You are banned from even setting foot in this restaurant ever again." It all happened way too quickly for me to even process it. Look, in hindsight is always 20/20, they say. In hindsight, it's not... Bringing in a gun and shooting people is probably something you shouldn't joke about anyway. But my intentions were good. I was trying to make somebody feel better about what I thought was an honest mistake. In reality, what I had done was I'd supplied somebody with the rope to hang me with. Because you see, the more I found out about the incident for which I'd been reported, the way they described it was totally different to how I remembered it. They said that I was abusive and aggressive towards her. So what it basically means is that this woman who felt like she had been humiliated, like she'd been exposed by me when I pointed out her mistake, she'd stripped one moment of me being emotionally vulnerable with her, where I was trying to make her feel better, where my intentions were good, if poorly, although my actions were clumsy, in my own clumsy way. I was trying to help her. She had used that against me, and she had mischaracterized the conversation that took place between myself and her, so as to make it as though I was threatening her. So everything that happened was it was her doing. I mean, first of all, she did not need to talk to the manager about what had happened between us. If she genuinely felt threatened by me, well, you get the impression that she wouldn't need to lie about it. And she wouldn't smile towards me on the one hand while saying a different thing in private. So I had been set up, essentially. And you know, it's weird to think back on this, but at the time, in all the moments leading up to this incident that got me dismissed there, I absolutely hated the job. And partially as a consequence of me getting let go, part of me felt relieved that I at least didn't need to spend the next few hours of the day working there, and that I wouldn't need to worry anymore about going into work this job I hated. But on the other hand, this had never happened to me before. I didn't even think I was capable of getting dismissed from a place of work. I thought that was for totally different people who just weren't any good at reading the room, who weren't anywhere near halfway decent when it came to watching what they say. I thought I was better than that. And yet here I was. I was escorted off the premises told to retrieve all my belongings. Suddenly, all the service staff, all the managers who I thought I'd been friendly and on good terms with, suddenly, they all looked at me with disgust. And it was all because of one throwaway comment that I made. Now, however you might feel about my actions that particular day, I understand that mass shootings, they can bring out a lot of strong emotions in people because of how often they've been happening recently. But I don't believe... Look, I think an incident like this, it ought to be investigated thoroughly. None of them cared to look into my side of the story. They all took her word as gospel. They didn't question what led to it. And look, this is probably going to rustle a lot of feathers, but I don't really find there to be anything worrisome about making a joke about mass shootings, because, I mean, they happen quite often now. They're not really shocking. I can barely keep up with all the mass shooting stories that occur in the news. It's like, mass shootings are basically like Marvel movies nowadays. There's a new one every month. And what should have happened and what should have remained a clumsy joke and an attempt at conversation between two co-workers in the context of a heated argument that happened before it, it should have remained exactly that. The managers should not have needed to have gotten involved, nor should they have taken a totally one-sided approach to resolving what was really little more than a dispute between two co-workers. But I was shafted. I was punished for this. I was let go, and even the police were called. I actually got a phone call from this dickhead who claimed to be a member of Toronto City Police. Looking back, I think it would have been funny if I just hung up the phone and not talked to him. So this was the first time in my life that I'd ever been properly sacked from my place of work, and it really knocked a dent in my confidence, because it made me realize this kind of thing, it can happen to me once, and if I'm not careful, it can happen to me again. And then, bearing aside that there was the more serious matter, that now that I no longer had a job, I no longer met the requirements for me being a tenant in the lodgings that I had secured. So I was going to need to either find a job, or I was going to have to move back to England and leave, basically. So the next few days or weeks after that were kind of a blur to me. I don't really remember what happened. I just kind of spent most of my days in my pajamas, sitting on my bed, mulling over and dwelling over what just happened. It was totally inconceivable that I could be set up to be betrayed like that. Look, I've said this many times before, but I'll say it again. My intentions were good and honorable. I tried to rebuild a broken bridge with somebody who really didn't deserve it. I tried to apologize for a wrong that I felt I'd committed. And this is how I've been paid back. I felt my conscience gnawing away at me the entire time when I was thinking of what I could have said to her in order to make things right. If I had any idea that that was what was going to happen afterwards, this is what I got basically for following my conscience. This is what I got for trying to apologize in my own clumsy and flawed manner. It really taught me something about human nature. I never claimed to be perfect, but I was trying to do the right thing, and I had been punished for it. It's been many years since then, but that one particular incident, what I'd say I learned from it is that a little paranoia and mistrust in other people can be healthy. Not everyone is as good-natured as you are. Some people are just sat waiting for the opportunity to take your words out of context, to lie about you and twist your own words and use them against you. And not everyone is good at playing the game of politics. Some people have an inherently Machiavellian disposition and some people have towering egos that they do not like to be challenged. And unless you're one of those people who is skilled at navigating human psychology, reading and understanding people, unless you're one of those people, which I most certainly am not, your entire life you will live at the mercy of these people and their treacherous whims. I don't set out to make enemies with other people. But when other people do things like that to me, I never forget it. It has been, let's think, this happened sometime in August 2019. It has been nearly 6 years since this incident happened, and I haven't forgotten it even now. And Lord knows, I have tried to, because it's not healthy to hold on to resentment. It's not spiritually wholesome to have fantasies of wanting to get even with people who have wronged you in the past, especially considering you know next to nothing about them, who they are, what their life story is, and where they are. I mean, practical matters aside as to whether you're even capable of finding where they live and taking steps there. But it is gratifying, and to some extent, I'd even say that resentment is something of a survival mechanism. Because if you've been wronged, and in a situation like the one which I described just now, there's two different ways you can look at this. On the one hand, you can look at this and think, everything that happened was my fault. I put my foot in my mouth. I said the wrong thing, and I got justly and appropriately punished for it. I deserve to get sacked. I should be grateful that I didn't get sent to prison and deported for my comments. And I should be careful not to make this, not to let this happen in the future. Or there's the second attitude we can take, is that I didn't intend for this to happen. I tried to make friends with someone who I thought that I had wronged, and I got stabbed in the back as a result. Yes, I could have gone about it in a different way, but it was not my intention to upset or humiliate her. And basically, my life and my emotional state have been thrown in disarray because of this. I've been stabbed in the back. It's all that bitch's fault. If I had done this with anybody else, they probably would have been more mindful of the circumstances and the consequences, and probably would not have lied about and slandered me in front of the managers. It's also possible, I don't know this for sure, there's so much I don't know about her, but I suspect it's possible that I'm not even the first person that this has happened to. Maybe she does this far more often. Maybe she lies about people routinely. Maybe because she's a somewhat attractive woman. I don't think she's attractive at all, honestly. If she stood in front of a white wall, I probably wouldn't have even noticed her. Maybe she believes that people are used to taking her side because she's a pretty young female. And maybe the psychology of modernity, in which #BelieveAllWomen and Me Too movement, maybe this has endowed her with a misplaced sense of confidence where other people are entirely disposable and she treats other people however she wishes. She probably knows everything about what happened to me, and she slept like a baby the next few nights thinking that she did the right thing. So why wouldn't you have fantasies about doing terrible things to somebody like that who had done that to you? It has been 6 years and I still haven't mentally moved on from this one occasion. And people talk about resentment and how it's better to just walk away. It's better to forgive and forget. But that is just not how the mind works. Everyone who says that, I am convinced that they live in a totally different reality. I said this before, and I'll say this again. Resentment can be a survival strategy. It's a reminder that you are under threat, that there are people out there who are willing to use you and eat you alive if you're not careful, and those people are responsible most of the time for having wronged you, and you need to avenge yourself at some point. It is also satisfying. I can't tell you how many times I've already violently murdered that in my head. Or the various different manners in which I've done it. Although, would I actually be able to do it? Supposing it turned out I was minding my own business somewhere, and I found out that the very same woman who did this to me, she was just walking down the street. There were no cameras, no witnesses. Would I be able to go through with my revenge fantasies? It's really difficult to say, but, well, among other things, I need to double check and verify that I have exactly the same person, because I don't have as much a keen attention to detail as other people. And there is a difference between fantasizing about something and then actually doing it. But that doesn't mean that I don't secretly dream of it from time to time. It's part of what makes us human, you know? You have a duty, understand, to take your own side in an argument, especially if nobody else does. Because if you don't, then everything that those other people say about you is true. Can you cope with the possibility, with the prospect that you got fired from work, you turned everyone against you because of a mistake that you made? Not everyone can. And if you can't do that, then resentment is a viable strategy for coping with what has happened to you. And you know, the paradox of resentment and wishing people dead who have wronged you in the past is materially, for all practical and material purposes, let's say I reached a point of financial security to the point where I was technically able to, say, I don't know, fly over to Canada, find out where this person lived, and build a network of paid actors, spies, hackers, whoever it is that I needed, in order to secretly expose her, make something terrible happen to her at her place of work that results in her getting fired, because that's another thing that I've been fantasizing about. if for me to reach that level of financial security, for me to have reached a level of proficiency where I can make that happen to people, I would probably no longer feel that I needed to take revenge on people in the first place, because there is truth to the old adage that success is the best revenge. Furthermore, if she found out that I was somehow responsible for what happened, then I would be liable to legal or civic action in the law courts. Anyway, obviously I'm making this video blog because I haven't gotten anywhere close to attaining that level of financial success yet, and really I would like to reach a future where I no longer need to cling on to resentment, where I no longer need to look back angry and embittered at the past, at the way I've been treated. But I haven't reached it yet. I'm still doing the same thing each day. I'm still trying to accrue savings for a tomorrow, for a future where I don't, for where I can retire comfortably. I'm still trying to build towards a future that I'm uncertain will come about. I'm still trying to survive. And I'm still at the risk of this happening again, although I would say that I've probably gotten a little better at navigating politics and a little better at learning who to not trust in the future. And I've also become a little more guarded and skeptical about other people's motivations. I've also become more embittered and more lonely as a result. But I've learned to be, because these are skills that you need to survive in this modern age. There's actually more things that I want to talk about in this video series about my time in Toronto. I'm probably going to have to talk about them in part 5. But anyway, this chronicles the end of my time working in Toronto. After I lost my job, a week or so would pass before I would explain to my parents what happened, and then this would be the beginning of the next leg of my stint in Toronto, where I would move up north and start working a different job. And I will explain how that came about in another video later. But for now, I'm going to finish my collection. This has been Tracking, and I'll see you guys later in my next video. Take care, everyone, and be well. Be well.